Christmas night wrapped. The city in lights that pretended everything was warm and kind. But for Ana Morales, the cold cut deeper than the wind slicing through her thin coat. She held her son Mateo's small hand as they stood outside the towering glass office building downtown, the kind that glittered with success and safety, two things she hadn't felt in years. Ana was a single mother, invisible to the world except when someone needed coffee refilled or floors cleaned. Tonight she had stayed late again, scrubbing offices that smelled of expensive cologne and untouched food, while her mind counted the coins left in her pocket and the excuses she would make to her son when they reached the empty apartment. Mateo was only 6, but life had already taught him silence, the kind children learn when they realize asking for too much hurts more than hunger. Inside the building, Anna's boss, Richard Hale, the CEO, finished another Christmas party surrounded by laughter he didn't feel. His penthouse office was decorated perfectly, yet somehow empty. He had wealth, power, and respect, but not a single voice waiting for him at home. As Anna walked Mateo past the lobby, her phone buzzed, a message from the landlord. Eviction tomorrow. No extensions, her breath caught. She knelt in front of Mateo, forcing a smile that broke her heart. "We're going to take a little walk tonight, okay?" Mateo nodded, eyes trusting, unaware that their life was about to fold in on itself. Snow began falling as they stepped outside again, and that was when fate slowed time. Richard exited the building, distracted by his phone, until he nearly collided with the small boy standing in front of him. Mateo looked up, eyes wide, innocent, and soft like the Christmas lights reflected in them. "Sir," he said quietly, tugging Richard's coat sleeve. Richard frowned, irritated, until the boy asked words that cracked something deep inside him. "Can you tell Santa we moved?" The world stopped. Richard stared, confused. "What?" Mateo looked back at his mother, then whispered, "Because Santa won't find us anymore. We don't have a house now." Anna rushed forward, apologizing, embarrassment burning her face, trying to pull Mateo away, but Richard couldn't move. In that moment, every success he had ever chased felt meaningless compared to the tremble in that child's voice. Snow continued falling, as if the sky itself was listening. Richard bent down slowly. "Why do you think Santa needs to know?" Mateo shrugged. "Because he brings gifts to houses, not to sidewalks." Anna's eyes filled with tears she had been holding back for years. Richard stood frozen, memories flooding him, his own childhood Christmases alone, waiting for parents who never showed up, the promises that never came. Something shifted, something painful and alive. He looked at Anna, really looked, not as an employee, but as a mother fighting a war no one applauded. "Where are you going tonight?" he asked. Anna hesitated. "We'll be fine." She lied. Richard nodded slowly, then said words that would change all their lives. "Come inside, just for a moment." Anna wanted to refuse, pride screaming. But Mateo's hand tightened in hers, and hunger won. As they stepped back into the warmth of the building, the camera of destiny began recording a story no one would forget. And to you watching this right now, if your heart is starting to feel heavy, don't leave. This is only the beginning. Subscribe, because some stories aren't just watched, they're felt. Inside the building, the warmth felt unreal, like stepping into another life. Mateo stared at the Christmas tree in the lobby, his eyes shining at ornaments he had only seen through store windows. Richard led them to his private office, the silence thick with unspoken questions. Anna's hands trembled as she held her son close, ready for judgment, ready to be told to leave. But instead, Richard poured hot chocolate for Mateo with hands that had signed million-dollar deals without shaking. The boy smiled, a real smile, and Richard realized how long it had been since he had seen one meant for him. As Mateo sipped, he asked innocent questions about Santa, about reindeer, about whether rich people felt cold too. Each question hit Richard harder than the last. Ana finally broke down, confessing everything: the eviction, the unpaid hospital bills from Mateo's asthma, the night she skipped dinner so her son could eat. She spoke softly, ashamed but honest. Richard listened, his chest tightening. He saw his mother in her, tired, proud, invisible. Memories he had buried resurfaced, sleeping in cars, pretending not to be hungry, wishing someone would see him. The irony crushed him. He had become everything he once hated, blind to suffering right beneath him. When Matteo fell asleep on the couch, clutching the empty mug like treasure, Richard made a decision that terrified him more than any business risk. He offered Anna a place to stay for the night. Just one night. Anna refused at first, but exhaustion defeated pride. That night, as snow painted the city white, 3 broken souls shared silence under one roof. But peace never comes without a storm. The next morning, Richard's board members arrived unexpectedly. They saw Anna, they saw Matteo. Whispers filled the room, scandal, risk, weakness. Richard stood between them and the door. "This is my decision," he said firmly. Ina overheard everything and felt humiliation burn again. She packed quietly, ready to disappear like always. But Matteo woke up and ran to Richard, hugging his leg. "You're nice," he said simply. Cameras would never capture that moment, but hearts would. Richard knelt and promised something dangerous. "I won't let you disappear," Anna cried, torn between hope and fear. The world had taught her that kindness always came with a price. But sometimes, miracles wear ordinary faces. If this story is touching something inside you right now, don't scroll, subscribe. Stories like this remind us we're human. Weeks passed. Christmas decorations faded, but change remained. Richard helped Anna find stable housing, paid her medical debts anonymously, and offered her a real job, not charity, but dignity. Yet the greatest change was inside him. He began mentoring children from shelters, remembering Matteo's words every time doubt crept in. One evening, months later, Matteo stood in front of a small Christmas tree in their new apartment. He wrote a letter to Santa. "Thank you for finding us," he whispered. Richard arrived with gifts, not expensive ones, but thoughtful ones. Ina watched, tears streaming freely now, not from shame but gratitude. Richard finally understood. Success wasn't built in offices, but in moments when you choose compassion over convenience. As the 3 stood together, snow falling again outside, Matteo looked up and said, "See, Santa found us." Richard smiled, finally whole. And to you watching, if this story made you feel, if it reminded you to be kind, to see the invisible, subscribe. Because every subscribe helps stories like this reach hearts that need them most. The night that truly ended their story, and quietly began many others, arrived. 1 year later, again wrapped in Christmas lights and soft snow, but this time Ana Morales was not afraid of the cold. She stood by the window of their modest yet warm apartment, watching Matteo carefully place a paper star on the tree, his face calm in a way it had never been before. The kind of calm that only comes when a child finally believes tomorrow will arrive without pain. Richard stood a few steps behind them, holding a small box in his hands, not as a powerful CEO, not as a savior, but as a man who had finally learned how fragile life really was. Over the past year, everything had changed in quiet, uncelebrated ways. Anna no longer cleaned offices at night. She managed people now, trained new employees, spoke with confidence she didn't know she had. Matteo's asthma was under control, his laughter louder, his nightmares gone. Richard, once surrounded by people yet deeply alone, had reshaped his company policies to protect single parents, fund emergency housing, and give second chances, real ones. But the greatest transformation was invisible to the world. Richard no longer rushed through life. He listened. He noticed. He saw people. That night, Matteo turned suddenly and asked a question that froze the room in a familiar way. "Do you think Santa remembers us?" he asked softly. Ina's heart skipped, old fears flickering, but Richard stepped forward and knelt beside the boy. "I think," he said gently, "Santa never forgot you. He was just waiting for the right moment to show up." Matteo smiled, satisfied, and returned to his tree. Richard handed Anna the small box. Inside was a simple key and a folded letter. The key was to the apartment, now fully paid for, legally hers, no rent, no fear. The letter was short. It said, "Thank you for reminding me that success means nothing if it doesn't lift." Someone else with it. Anna broke down, covering her face. years of survival finally releasing into quiet sobs. Richard didn't speak. He didn't need to. Outside, the city moved on, unaware that a miracle had completed its circle. Later that night, as snow fell gently, Matteo placed his letter under the tree. It read, "Dear Santa, you found us. We're okay now. Please help someone else next." When Anna read it, she realized the story was no longer about poverty or wealth, power or rescue. It was about a moment, one simple question spoken by a child who didn't know he was changing a man's life forever. Somewhere in the city, other single mothers walked in the cold. Other children whispered quiet prayers. Other powerful people hurried past without looking. But sometimes, just sometimes, one person listens, and that is enough to rewrite destiny. If you've watched this story until the end, then you are the kind of person who still believes compassion matters. Don't let that belief fade when the video ends. Subscribe to this channel, because these stories aren't just entertainment, they are reminders. Reminders to look back, to stop, to listen. Because you never know when a single sentence might change everything.